is the gravestone of John Fagan. He was the last hedge schoolmaster, and he actually transferred into the permanent school in Glenville before his retirement. But he figures greatly in the story of this, the burial ground part of it. We can move on. This is the second member of the trio, Patrick Sweeney. He was a farmer in this area, but he was also the son of the gamekeeper at the manor. And hence, what transpired, I will carry on just now. So, and he is also my great grandfather, Patrick Sweeney. And my aunt and my first cousin and various more recent relatives and all the ancient relatives are buried here. This is the pivotal guy. There hadn't been any official burials here until June 1853. And William Elliot was a son of the manor. He was a BL, and he had become a Catholic, which displeased his family greatly because his brother was Archbishop of Armagh and Primate of All Ireland. But his brother died young, strangely. He's buried, of course, over in St. Mary's in Glenville, where 15 members of his family are buried. And this is the only one who's the outsider. But when his brother died, he had already studied to become a Catholic, and immediately he became a Catholic. And as well as becoming a Catholic, he threw his lot in with the Patrick Sweeney and John Fagan, who were freedom fighters of the day, trying to fight the repeal movement against the banning of the Catholic Church. And he threw his lot in with them. Unfortunately, he got consumption. Consumption must be no respecter of persons, because two in his family got it and they were extremely wealthy. But he got consumption and he was about to die, and his family told him that he would not or ever be welcome in the churchyard in Glenville. So he would have to find someplace else to be buried. And he was in a terrible state and he was very ill. And so his two friends got together with him and they said, "We'll be buried. Whenever we die after you, we promise you that we will be buried with you in Doon." He came back here with them one day previously, and he said, "If I could be buried here, wouldn't I be happy?" But of course there hadn't been any burial. But they promised there and then that they would be buried with him. And as I pointed out, Elliot Hudson was the first official burial here. Now, he was adding to big numbers. Strangely, he was in the middle of all the people that are being buried down there, here, inside the graveyard, who worked on the famine road and died on it. Famine victims. We'll have a better look at that later. But in fact, 53 was early for the famine, but it was coming on, and he was buried here, and very shortly he was joined by, we expect, hundreds of people who are buried over there in the famine plot. So, And of course, even prior to that, down the centuries, the little babies, all babies, and we'll move on and I'll show you this. This is very interesting. In 2016, only 2 years ago, it was the year of mercy, and we decided that we'd use the pilgrimage to here as our big event for the year of mercy. And then it dawned on a few of us that wouldn't the year of mercy be the ideal time to put a marker, which we had been refused permission to do over the century years, in my case, over the centuries I expect, to the Killeen. This is babies who were still born at home, and all babies, I suppose 95% of them in the deep country, as Glenville would have been born at home with the help of a local doctor if they were lucky, but we didn't have a doctor in Glenville. He had to come by horse and chap from Carricknavar, and maybe the midwife. We had a wonderful midwife. In latter years, she delivered safely so many babies around. I'll just mention her name, Mary Barry Cosgrave, Nee Barry, wonderful midwife. And she is still with us today, which is great. But the babies were buried here. And as you can see, when the ferns die back, you can see all the small headstones. And the story behind that is heart-wrenching, because the baby died at home. There was no place to bury the baby. They wanted the baby to be buried, obviously, in holy ground, and the church refused that. It wasn't allowed by the Catholic Church unless the babies were baptised. And of course they hadn't been, because at that point people didn't do baptism in case of necessity. It wasn't done, you know. It can be done now in maternity hospitals, whatever, if the baby is passing away. But anyway, those poor babies had no resting place. And not only was it against the church's law, but it was against the civil law as well. It was a crime. So these poor fathers had to, in their heartbreak, had to get their baby, their shovel, hopefully a man friend, maybe a brother usually of the father's, and come through back. You can see the valley back there, which was Sweeney's Boreen, came right into nearly to the about 2 fields from here. And you see, in the dark of night, that Boreen was so safe, nobody would ever see them or find them. But when my mother was growing up in that farm, Sweeney's, over there, she remembers seeing the men come in at night with a small flashlight or a storm lamp, maybe, coming away in their Boreen. They'd spot them and they'd know, and their mother or father would say, "Oh, the poor men, we have to say a prayer for them." And, you know, it's heart-wrenching to think of it. And I want you to realise that this has been experienced by so many. If you're ever here when the ferns are gone, you'll see the number of little stones standing up. As well as that, then, in latter years, we had a shop in the village, and my father used to get the cheese delivered in a box, a timber box, and he would keep the boxes because people would look for them to put the baby in when they died at home and bury them here. So some would be in cheese boxes, and he would line the cheese boxes with the foil out of the tea chests. So, talk about being adaptive or inventive or whatever. But yeah, there was great compassion, of course, shown to the people who had to go through that trauma.